Move this down a little bit. Tiny person. Hi, everybody. I'm not really used to being up here and speaking. I don't know if some of you know, if you know who I am. Good way to start. My name is Stephanie, and I was a dancer with Ballet Memphis for 14 years. I moved here in 2000, in the year 2000, at the age of 19. I was a kid. I had just finished 2 years at a professional ballet school and moved away from home when I was 17. And I moved here an arrogant, young girl, thinking that Memphis would just be a stepping stone on my pathway to taking the dance world by storm. After my 2 years in Houston, that's where I was, I didn't say that before, I had a bunch of unsuccessful auditions in New York, which if you're a young dancer and you go to open auditions in New York, it's like probably the worst thing you could ever do. 150 people in a room, and they're just graciously telling you thank you as you're doing your pliés. They're just like, thank you for coming. You flew all this way, but you can dance for 5 minutes and then you can go. On a whim, I tagged along with some friends to Dallas. At the time, Ballet Memphis was doing a nationwide audition tour, and they were holding one at SMU. So I figured it was within driving distance. I needed a job, so I tagged along. And it wasn't successful initially. They were interested, but they didn't know what they could offer me yet. So, but they had offered a male friend of mine a job, of course, because, I'm not gonna bash men up here, but in the dance world, they have it much easier. There's probably 20 women to every man, and so they don't always have to work as hard, and they get paid much more. It's just how it is. It's supply and demand, I think. There are just less of them. A male friend of mine had gotten a job, and so he accepted it, and he decided that he was going to come to Memphis to look for an apartment. So I was like, great, I will come along because I don't have a job, and I'm going to come with you. And I figured that the more that they saw me here at Ballet Memphis, that maybe they would give me a job. So I do like to say that persistence was part of the reason why I got a job. I don't know if that's true, but I did end up I came here again and took class, and they offered me an apprenticeship. So July 29th, 2000 was my first day on the job. Let's see, so that's how I got here. And the years between then and now are kind of a blur. It's like I can't ever remember what I did. Every time I have to write a resume, I'm kind of like, what did I do? I can't ever remember. I have to always call friends and have them help me reference. I do know that when I first moved here, I didn't do much more than my job. I wasn't going out in the community. I lived in Cordova. No offense. No offense to Cordova, but it lasted for 6 months, and that's all I could do. Midtown was just calling my name. I was, like I said before, I was so young. I was incredibly awkward, and I think that awkwardness was kind of it didn't necessarily draw me to ballet, but like my best girlfriends were also dancers. We're all incredibly late bloomers. We didn't know how to talk to anybody we were attracted to. It was, we found our place in the studio. It was like where everything made sense. I felt accomplished, and I felt like I could excel. Let me change my page. think in the studio, maybe it was also youth. Thinking didn't get in the way of action. My right brain ruled the roost. It wasn't, maybe it's just that beautiful naivete. I wish that I could have kept that for longer. In my later dancing years, I think it's harder to remember the simplicity of why we do the things that we love as we develop as humans. Okay, so I'm not going to go into all the details of my training years, but or all of my career, but to say anything, I guess it was pretty challenging. Let's see. It says, okay, my words say. I'm just gonna read up here. The classical ballet world is so antiquated. It's very much like I would say the relationship between the staff and the dancers is like parents and children. You do what you're told, you don't argue, be who we want you to be, don't be yourself. Which was challenging in my later years. It's kind of like growing up in an Asian family, but that's a whole other do what's best for your family. You're always at the mercy of someone else and under the control of someone else. Every year, you don't know if you'll have a job. You get to the end of your contract and maybe they'll rehire you. And the sad part is, and the sort of cruel reality is that you can be your best. You can be as talented as you're capable of being, and you can work your hardest, but sometimes it's just not enough. And it's no wonder that was sort of like the underlying theme of my therapy was that I always felt like I wasn't enough because I spent 14 years of my career, or even longer, even in my training, always trying to prove that I was. So I felt pretty powerless when I was in my career. I chose, of course, to take the job, and so that's like the one choice that you make. And you can always choose to not do that, but if you want to dance, you kind of just take whatever comes with it. You take the good with the bad. If you want a career, you just have to kind of do what you have to do, unfortunately. At Ballet Memphis, and I'm not here to bash it by any means, but, and it's not even just this one particular company, but you're always expected to just give and give and give of yourself, and to always be performing. You're performing when you're in rehearsal, you're performing when, for your staff, for your peers, for the community. I mean, that's your job. But so often are you never replenished. You don't have the time and you don't have the resources to be able to truly give yourself that space to refuel. So it's no wonder that by the time I was 31, that I felt completely depleted. And also I had grown, I became a woman here in Memphis, and I think that the more you know, the more that you want, and so my ideals within the company were, and the company's ideals for me were just starting to cut completely out of alignment, and so that's kind of when I knew it was time to retire. I'm going all over the place. I'm not even following my notes. So this says, I keep saying that, and I wrote these words. So, by the time I was 31, I had been dancing professionally for 10 years, and I had grown beyond what Ballet Memphis was capable of or willing to give me. In my personal life, I had jumped from one intimate relationship that lasted several years too long and fizzled into nothingness, into a relationship where both of our wants and needs were completely out of alignment. I could feel that my potential for crazy and irrational behavior was bubbling closely under the surface. But I could still recognize that the only person that I could change or control was myself. So that's when I seeked professional help. And so I did, and it was awesome. I mean, it was, I always like to say, Susan Bell, counselor, best money I ever spent. And this marked the beginning of a practice of self-care and practicing loving kindness towards myself that was so desperately needed. After years of allowing myself to be told that I was never enough, whether in my profession or whether in the relationships that I was choosing to be in, I was finally on my way to knowing that I was. This was a really hard thing for me this monologue was really hard for me to write. My friends can attest to that. I was having all sorts of anxiety about it. This is not in my nature. I'm supposed to be up here speaking, but, and there's a part of me that when I tell my story, my gosh, such first world problems, and not to say that they're irrelevant to my life, they absolutely are, but they have made me so grateful for the privileges that I've had. I had a family that had the economic stability to give me access to dance. My parents gave me the access to do what I loved for 14 years. I had a job that never felt like a job. I did what I loved and got paid for it, which was amazing. I am surrounded by love. When I look around the room, and I talked about this earlier, the first time I came to Spill It, I was like, oh my gosh, these are my people, It just felt like everything was gonna be okay. I felt supported and fed and totally awesome. When I retired from the company, which was just a year and a half ago, I thought I wanted to pick up and leave. I was like, fuck this place, off to bigger, better things, I just really wanted, I was also very, very unhappy with my job at the end, and just thought that I could just start again. All my problems here would leave, I could leave them behind and move on to bigger and better things, bigger cities, I'm gonna move to San Francisco, or I don't even know, it's just an example. But I'm so happy that I didn't. The time and the distance healed a lot of my pain when it came to my job. I had, like I said, the time and distance, to be able to appreciate it for what it was and everything that it gave me, and I'm not to see the things that are wrong with it, but I was no longer connected with them, and they no longer held me captive. I finally feel like I have choice, that I can choose to do whatever I want and whatever serves me, because I don't know, when you're in something that you have to be so dedicated to as ballet was for me, you live and you breathe for it. You don't have the time or the energy or the money to do anything else. It's like, oh, I want to go rock climbing. Oh, well, you can't, because you might hurt yourself. Or you have to. Your hours are just so committed to doing that thing, that one thing. So today, I choose to live in Memphis and to truly live in the city that, with all of its wonder and all of its faults, and it feels really, really good. Thank you.